And are we live? Yes. Hi, I'm James McGuire, editor of Datamation, and our topic today is new research from QuinStreet about the priorities of IT and business executives, everything from smart technologies to Internet of Things to BPM. Some of those technologies are on the way up, some are getting less investment, and we'll talk about why. To discuss that, I'm joined by three of my editorial colleagues, including Sean Michael Kerner, senior editor of eWeek and Internet News. Hello to you, Sean.
Hello, James, and everyone out there in YouTube Hangout. Wonderful Thursday, and I'm in the Great White North. Not as sunny as other places, but it's doing okay.
Fantastic. And remind me again, you told like the cap is who?
Toronto Blue Jays, as of yesterday, American League East champions, beat out Yankees, Red Sox, Tampa Bay, etc. First time in 22 years, so everybody in my neck of the woods is quite excited.
Go Blue Jays.
Exactly.
Also with us is Kachina Shaw, managing editor of IT Business Edge. Hello to you, Kachina.
Hey, James and everybody.
And I know you know IT Business Edge covers the gamut of information technology, so I know you really got your finger in the pulse of these technologies.
Well, we try, and so today we're going to get to talk about a lot of the stuff that we write about every day. So I'm ready to do that with you guys.
All right. Also with us is Chris Primesberger, editor of Futures and Analysis at eWeek. Hello to you, Chris.
Hi, James and Kachina and Sean, SMK. I like to call him SMK. It's a lot easier.
I call him the dude. And Chris, I know that if I'm driving in Silicon Valley and I stop somewhere, I'm going to likely see you because I think of you as Mr. Silicon Valley somehow.
Well, thank you. That's a compliment. But yeah. The traffic has precluded me from actually driving around very much lately. It's pretty busy around here. A lot of people moving in, a lot of jobs being filled, a lot of buses taking employees from one place to another. It's I haven't seen it quite this busy for 15 years at least.
Yeah, all those Teslas driving around too. You don't want to hit one of those Teslas.
No, you don't want to hit one of those driverless Google cars either because they're out there too.
Right. So the new research report, it's from QuinStreet. It's titled "Move Over Cloud and Mobility. Executives Have Their Eye on New Technologies," and it's a survey of 250 executives. It's a lot of stuff, a lot of data, numbers, factoids. I'm curious, the three of you, looking at all this information, what struck you in particular? Knowing IT as you do, I mean, Kachina, what struck you in the report as particularly noteworthy?
Well, one thing that I was looking at that seemed a little maybe surprising in a way is that the non-executives that were included in the non-IT executives, excuse me,
the business executives.
Exactly.
Right.
They're very keen on pursuing the benefits of what we're calling smart technologies, which includes a lot of different tools and options. But they put that, the non-IT folks put that in their top 3 initiatives for this list, and I'm thinking that is because they are already seeing the benefits that some of these smart technologies, wearables, and other combinations could create, not only in improving processes, but even eliminating a lot of processes that are currently in place. So we're seeing a very top-down approach in this area. It's kind of different from another huge trend that's been going on with BYOD, which was very bottom-up. And IT didn't place it in their top 3 initiatives, so they're going to want to make sure that the two groups are communicating very well on what the goals are and what the timeline is.
It's funny that the business folks put the wearables over what the IT folks put. How would you explain that one?
I guess it's just that the IT folks are still trying to take care of initiatives that are already in place. That would be my best guess, that maybe next time around it'll move up in priority for them, but they have a lot going on, so you can only pick top three things.
Yeah, right. IT people don't want to touch the wearables right now. They've got too much on their plate. Yeah. You're absolutely right. Yeah. They abhor the idea of having to control, wearable computers, other wearable computers. They don't want to do it.
Another new toy. In their eyes, it's like who needs yet more to deal with. Yeah.
Exactly.
Sean, what about your wearables? How many wearables are you wearing today?
Today only two, but that's okay. Just standard tracker, and then I've got a Lumo for my back because in this business I sit way too much, so it's a risk. So it buzzes me every 15 minutes. So if you see me stand up, just because
Sure.
that's it. I'm being shocked into it. But yeah, wearables are interesting. For me, wearables are there's a security risk because you don't know if you can update them, which is fine and nice. The other thing is there's no visibility or control because the vast majority of these things are just connected over Bluetooth. And I've never met an enterprise IT manager that actually manages Bluetooth. That's usually an individual user. So there's no policies for that. There's no monitoring for that. You don't know what's going on. So, if somebody's trying to exfiltrate data, that is, take data from one place to another, they do it over Bluetooth. How are you going to know? So it's a wide open world. It was just, what was it, yesterday or was it early this morning, I guess it was, the LG people announced their new Urbane with 4G LTE on a watch. Now that will be exciting.
Sounds fancy.
Yeah, I would pre-order it right away because the Bluetooth is one thing, but if I could have, a full Dick Tracy watch and call from my watch, that would be great. But same challenge for IT, no visibility, same risks for data though.
So what did you find in the report? What really stuck out from you in terms of being particularly noteworthy?
A few things actually, and I've got sheet notes in front of me.
Oh, good.
Yeah, always the right thing. And to all of our good listeners here and all the people participating and watching this hangout, I strongly encourage everyone to click on the links from our different stories to investigate this. But I like digging into the details. There was a very interesting mix. I like looking at the year over year. So last year, cloud investment was higher than this year. So for some reason, the cloud investment went down. But then on the flip side, the investment in virtualization went up. Most people I talk to think of cloud and virtualization as the same coin, not even two sides of the same coin, the same side of the same coin. So I was kind of interested to see what that's all about. But then there's another data point a little bit later from a different question where it shows that one of the year-over-year increases was in the increase of integrating the cloud center. So
me too.
Yeah, so it's kind of an interesting, when you ask people three questions, the same question, three different ways, you get two different answers here. So some of them said, cloud investment's going down. They're all saying virtualization's going up, but they're all saying that the investment in cloud data centers is going up. So what that says to me is there's an interesting mix going on. So people probably think of cloud as metered by the drink, Amazon kind of thing, and they're thinking virtualization, VMware, seats, and licenses, and then the data center is their own cost. So there's a couple different things happening here. I don't know how it's going to shake out, but that's what I find interesting is the I guess it is almost the confusion, as it were. I hate to use the word confusion. But the confusion.
I think it's called for in this case. Yeah, there's an element of confusion. It's all in flux, to be sure.
Yeah, different answers to the same question. Are you investing more in the cloud or not? Right? Depends on how you ask the questions.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the statistics, it was item number 6 in terms of priority was cloud investment. So in years past, that would have been higher. But right behind that, at number 7 was, as you say, integrating cloud and data center. And that's actually going up, if I remember correctly. And so if you put them together, number 6 and number 7, that's actually a higher priority than you might think. So I take from that cloud is, it's not quite old news. It's not as cutting edge as it once was. I'd say, in essence, it's now considered mainstream technology, which makes perfect sense.
Yeah. One thing that this study didn't specifically call out, though I know in our various analysis we probably have or will, is this hybrid. Though our good friends at VMware have changed that word. Now they call it, what do they call it? VMware vCloud Air. It's all air, right? They don't like using that word, hybrid.
It's better than vaporware.
It's true. I still like using the word hybrid. So when I see that integration of data center in the cloud, I see hybrid because there are some workloads that should go to the cloud, some that should say private. I know you, Chris, had a great slideshow on eWeek the other day, what to put in the cloud. So we've done some great work in that area. Not everything should go to the cloud. Not everything should stay on premise. So it's not a black and white situation. And I think IT people and organizations are figuring out what's what.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I would say clearly looking to the future of the cloud, and some of the confusion in the stats suggests this. It's all going to be hybrid one way or the other. I don't think the in-house data center may fade, but it's not going to go away for the foreseeable future. I mean, in a sense, we are necessarily in a hybrid world.
You know what? I would agree with you, except that there's one notable exception, which is Netflix. And everybody points to Netflix as the poster child for Amazon. If Netflix can do it without a data center, I'm sure the Amazon people will say, and they've got their wonderful reInvent next week, they'll have probably lots of people on stage. They'll say, well, why can't you?
Right.
So I'm not so sure, and I agree with you. I think there always should be a mix, but there'll always be people who will point to Netflix and say, hey, look, they can do it.
What about the concept of security? You know, looking at the research report, I was really struck, and that the interest in the focus on security remains overwhelming. 40% of IT execs and 30% of business execs listed as the top three. As a matter of fact, there's number one for both groups. So, I mean, what's up with that? After all these years, you know, security remains an extremely important topic. Chris, your take on that? Why is security never under control? It seems like.
Actually, Sean should answer that. He's a security guy. But no, I write about it too, and I write it from the business standpoint, not from the technical standpoint as much. Security is never going to go away as a top three priority. You know, on the priority list, it's always going to be there, and for obvious reasons. We can't seem to catch up with the bad guys. We can't seem to catch up with all the the human aspects of IT, of employees who get desperate and have to steal from the company or whatever. And so the human aspect is apparent in security more than I think almost any sector. If you think about it, you can automate just about everything, but you can't really automate security to the extent where you automate out the human element. You just can't do it. So I think that's always going to be up there.
I mean, I think that security remains in-house security, infrastructure security is necessarily a sort of a defensive position, in that the hackers have all the time in the world. They can try new techniques constantly. The infrastructure is going to be dug in. It will always be under attack. I was at a trade show several years back, and I was listening to a talk by a CTO of a major bank, and he said that their bank fields 3,000 hacking attacks a week, if you can imagine that. I mean, it is basically it's around the clock, 24/7.
Yeah. It's like the old, in the old days, the medieval days, the castle. Right. Everybody attacking it from all different sides all the time. If you didn't have those high walls and those turrets and all that to protect your little fiefdom, you're a goner. And a lot of times, they were conquered, but that's the way it is.
Yeah, the only thing I would add in on that, it's kind of like, because we're in the U.S. and in Canada here, it's a little bit sooner, but election season, and people always ask, well, what's the number one priority? And everyone will always say it's the economy. I don't care whether it's 2016 or 1916. The economy is always the issue. I don't care whether it's 2015 or 2116, and IT security will always be an issue. Just because it has to be. And I'm frankly surprised that only 40% of people had it as a top priority and not 100. I'd like to see those other 60 that don't have it as a top priority.
Yeah, really, what are they thinking? Yeah.
Well, they're probably not going to be around maybe too much longer, and it becomes a race to the bottom and a race to the top, and the ones who get to the top might see a little advantage in holding on to their customers, depending on what business they may be in. These days, it's becoming a little more crucial to not only have your ducks in a row, but be able to communicate that very well. So if you're not keeping up, see ya.
Exactly, yeah. In the year 2116, they'll be attacking our virtual 3D, virtual reality avatars. And we will be just as dangerous at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
What else about the report? What really struck you? Are there business process management, Internet of Things? Katrina, I don't think you had some thoughts about BPM. Did you not?
Well, I guess I was touching on that when I was talking about looking for ways to actually, I hate to say it, being a human being as I am, but eliminating processes and automating even more in new ways. But that also relies on another buzzword that surprisingly hasn't come up in our discussion yet, and that's big data. And but that was one of the items that could be chosen as an initiative in our survey, our QuinStreet survey. And so IT put it in their top 3 initiatives. The business execs did not. And I guess those kind of disparities stick out to me, and I'm wondering if that could be because the line of business managers don't see that as an IT initiative because it's theirs, they own it. At this point, they really do. It's coming from the other parts of the business, and in fact, they're selecting and purchasing their own tools, and IT can just catch up if they can, basically. So again, I'm wondering why it didn't show up a little higher outside of IT, but it might be that they just don't see it as an IT initiative.
It's interesting too. I mean, as you say, I'll quote the report: IT execs see a slight increase in these plans and big data plans, while business execs expect a sharp decrease. Interesting difference of opinion there. On the two, I would say, I mean, the biz execs are reading it. I'm thinking, well, we put money into this, and maybe enough money for now. Where I think the IT execs are closer to the flow of data, and they're realizing there's still a lot of profit to be made by continuing to to invest more heavily in big data.
Yeah.
I see it. Sorry, just to interrupt you guys. I see it as a focus kind of core competence kind of area, because for IT, big data is storage. Right? Big data is petabytes, and you got to figure out storage. Throw your EMC NetApp array at it, and that's it. For the business, it's about business analytics and figuring out how to
charts and graphs.
So there's a lot of value for IT. There's value too, but you throw your storage array at it. By definition, usually big data is unstructured, so you throw it in what's the big term? The data lake, as it were.
Yes, I love the term data lake. Yeah.
Which basically just throw it all on a big array, and then you let the analytics engine figure it out. So for IT, big data is almost, I hate to say the word because somebody will yell at me afterwards, but it's easy because it's just a massive pool of storage data. Leave it there, and then the business, you guys go figure out what to do with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Chris, something else that struck you from the research that really, really made a difference to you?
Yeah, everything about the smart technology maps exactly to what I'm seeing on a daily basis. In other words, I'm seeing companies come up with an analytics option, it seems, for almost every new app or new product that's coming out. Either it's within the app, or it's the company has partnered with somebody else to bring it in. Most of the time, there's a connector, an API, or something to an analytics engine somewhere, and these are used on the front end and the back end. So, for a customer-facing app, it's all about the customer, saving the customer information, finding out the tendencies of the customer real quickly, so that the apps can point to them and be relevant to them. And then on the back end, it's all about monitoring the apps themselves, the usage, the places where people are coming in from from the web and all that stuff, so that spikes can be predicted, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm seeing that, and because the analytics options are so, like Sean said, easy. That's a word, and that's the word that I'm thinking of. They're easy to implement.
The interface may be easy in some
instances. The interface, yeah, it is.
Hopefully.
That's what I meant. Yeah. To get them connected with new apps and new products like this is much easier than it used to be. It's still not an easy job, obviously. I mean, you've got highly trained tech people that can do this, but it's becoming a lot more prevalent now, and the interfaces are becoming much more understandable and user-friendly, to coin a phrase, by employees and by users alike. And that is mapping to the numbers I'm seeing here in the survey, for sure.
Is that related to the idea we were talking about with the Holy Trinity of, I think it's automation, intelligence, and one other element?
Well, what was
the Holy Trinity?
Yeah, the Holy Trinity was three things, and then, James, after we talked about that, I thought of two more. So it's not a trinity anymore.
It's the Holy Quintuple or something, whatever.
The quintuplet, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll read them here since.
Oh, good.
Since we just real quickly, because I can't remember. No, actually, I haven't. The five most important elements in new gen IT, and I think that an app or a product of any kind, whether it's a hardware app or a hardware with app in it, or a cloud service or an on-premise app, if it doesn't have intelligence and analytics, and if it's not really usable, if it can't scale, and if there's no automation involved and the security is questionable, any of those are out, your app is probably not going to succeed. You have to have those elements.
Right.
Because first of all, if the user can understand the interface, it's going to become shelfware. If it's not secure, it's going to become shelfware. If it doesn't scale out like it should because of all the the burgeoning number of users that we have on mobile devices and at home on laptops and desktops, it's not going to work. And then it has to be able to be interactive with the user intelligence-wise. It's got to remember things because we're so spoiled now. If these things don't react to us immediately, we move on to the next thing, or we find something else that does. And then finally, automation on the back end. Everything has to be automated for all this to work. And if those things aren't present, I don't see how your app or your product is going to be successful going forward.
Right. A lot of demands. It's interesting from the research. I think this is page 6. They talk about executives' 2015 top IT challenges. Number 1 is lack of resources. Number 2 is increasing complexity of technology. 3 is disaster crisis and preparation. 4 is dealing with an explosion of data. I mean, if you add those together, that's a pretty serious set of challenges. You know, we don't have enough resources. It's too complicated. We have to prepare for disaster, and our data is exploding for us in front of us.
Yeah, the sky is falling, James. I don't know.
There's
Yes.
There's an answer to the lack of resources thing, which also kind of relates to what Chris was saying. One more item that I would add to the holy quintuplet or,
Yes.
or quintuplet.
You get a sextuplet.
Yes.
Exactly. I'd call it open source because with open source, that's how you can also help with the lack of resources because no one company can know everything. So when you have that community, as it were, and people can contribute in, that will work. Think Cloud Foundry, for example. So many major IT vendors, IBM, HP, etc., EMC, Pivotal, many more, all contribute in. EMC Pivotal could have done it all on their own. They didn't. They've got the benefit of a larger community, and you have more developer resources as a result. So not only is it open source, but they solve or help to solve that lack of IT resource issues. So open source in the mix is kind of interesting. There was a really interesting Linux Foundation study out the other day, and I'll have a version of that study on Datamation for you tomorrow, James.
Oh, good.
From the Linux Foundation. I wasn't so sure about their math, so I've got to double check some things. But they're claiming that the value of Linux Foundation collaboration projects is $5 billion. I'm not so sure if it's $5 billion.
Pretty big number.
Yeah.
I bet you it's higher than that, actually. I think that's low.
Okay.
You know what? We would not have the IT world or the internet or devices or cars or anything without the open source community.
Absolutely. But their study wasn't just Linux. They were talking about their collaboration projects. So Linux, yeah, for sure. But anyway, there's a value, whatever it is. We'll call it 8, 9, 10 figures because that contributed. But more importantly, the time, right? Because one company, you have 100, 10,000 developers, no more. You have an open source community, multiple contributors, multiple developers in multiple places, and you just have that scale. And that can help for the lack of resources issue, and it's also helpful for adoption for any type of next-gen IT, because then no company has to be too worried about lock-in, which is always a risk, because nobody wants to invest the time, energy, resources to deploy something, to have a company go belly up the next week, and then you're stuck trying to maintain something that nobody's going to help you out with that you can't do on your own.
Right.
Good point.
And business process management actually made a pretty healthy showing in the survey. There's quite a bit of interest in BPM. Katrina, did you notice the BPM interest in the survey? Katrina, are you there?
Oh yeah, I did. Well, I guess that encourages me that maybe that's somewhere where the business, the non-IT execs, and the IT execs can actually get together and do something that is going to produce probably both a short-term and a long-term benefit, and it's a little bit more positive. I mean, there's a lot of, like we said, the sky is falling stuff going on in this survey. It seems like here, this is something that can actually, they can work together on and get something positive done together.
It's interesting, quoting from the survey, it says, quote, lack of resources and the increasing complexity of technology are the two most cited IT challenges among the executives surveyed in 2015, just as they were in 2014. I think part of that relates to the increase in business process management, because it's a way to make a systematic approach. In theory, you can automate workflow with a good BPM solution. I think some of the managers are saying, is there a way we can get more from our existing staff and perhaps the BPM solution is the way to that. Whether or not that's actually the answer remains an open question.
Yeah.
What about looking into the future? If you think about what any of these statistics suggest for the years ahead, is there something, if you can take these numbers and kind of extrapolate where we're going, looking ahead, Sean, where are we going to be, say, 5 years from now?
Many of the same issues. I think with cloud, I hope we'll see a little bit of normalization. You won't see people saying they're going to invest in cloud, but rather they're going to spend on cloud. It's a little bit different, right? Because it's CapEx versus OpEx kind of question. The lack of IT resources issue, I hope, will not become as much of an issue because things will get, hopefully, easier. And more importantly, there are, I know we just talked a little bit about BPM, but there's increasing tools for DevOps. So you cut out the middleman, as it were, with DevOps. Still nascent in a lot of industries, but you can do more with less. I'm a big fan of orchestration tools, things like Puppet, Chef, and Ansible. Full disclosure, I use Puppet. So instead of having 10 network administrators manage 1,000 servers, you have one guy manage 1,000 servers. So
how do you personally use Puppet? Just curious on that one.
Sorry?
How do you use Puppet, you yourself?
How do I use Puppet? As a master manifest, because I have a couple WordPress sites and other things that I help deploy.
Yeah.
So just a simple image, use it to push out, match it with Docker so that it's pretty straightforward. So it's a simple, reproducible way to do a deploy time and again without having to figure it out each and every time.
Did you just use the D word, Sean? Docker?
Well, you can't have. There's a couple things. I know Chris mentioned the holy quintuplet. A couple things that I have to mention in every store. Right? We have to talk containers and Docker.
Right.
You have to say mobile, and you have to say IoT. We haven't said IoT or Docker, so I had to squeeze those two things inside.
For sure. Have we not properly covered Internet of Things? It's curious to me about IoT is that it gets a lot of buzz, and it was certainly mentioned in the survey, absolutely. But it seems like it is far closer to its infancy than anything even vaguely resembling maturity.
We're in the top half of the first inning on the IoT, James.
Right.
I mean, we're just starting. There's no question about it. I just led a panel yesterday on the IoT. I'm looking ahead at the IoT at the Integrate conference, small conference here in Santa Clara, and I had a guy from IBM on it, a guy from Qualcomm, and two others. A really interesting topic, and we're looking ahead at things, and it's like it's so early. It's so early. You can say we've got plenty of video cams out there right now. I mean, entire cities are covered by video cams, it seems like, and all that data is in the IoT, and then all the sensors that we have, and then the heart monitors that we have, and in the cars and everything else. But we're just scratching the surface on this stuff,
Right.
And it's just interesting to see the creative powers that are coming to be in the IoT. We're only just seeing the beginning of it right now. There's no question.
Katrina, your thoughts on the IoT trend? Are we headed upward? Are we there yet? First of all, is your coffee machine talking to your refrigerator yet? Are they all connected to the internet? Can you program your coffee machine through your app? Is what I really want to know.
I'm predicting that things will quickly be connected without my knowledge, and they'll be spying on me from all corners. But
we already are, Katrina. Just so you know, we already are.
I guess in 5 years, I mean, if we think that security is an unclimbable mountain right now, it's just going to get worse. People want to pile on to the IoT and have all of these, mile-high ideas about what can be done with it, and then a little bit later they'll say, oh, well, now we've created even more breach opportunities or network openings or what have you, and we need to go unplug those. So it's really, really, really going to be frustrating for enterprise IT groups, let alone the rest of us, to keep up with what's happening there. Compliance is just going to kind of become a much bigger, much bigger issue as well. Right now, that is a little bit confined to the responsibility of it in certain quarters, and just as security is everybody's job now, compliance will become everybody's job as well.
Yeah, on the IoT connected coffee maker, I'd be lying if I said I didn't have. But mine is a kind of a workaround. I've got a Wemo switch plugged into my Tassimo. It's all set to on, and then I just have the timer go off at 6 in the morning. Because that smell of coffee in the morning is what gets me going. Otherwise, I'd be in big trouble.
Wait, are you telling me that you're somehow able to program that through the web?
It's a workaround. I have it plugged into the switch, and I have the switch turn on at 6 in the morning.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that's all it is. For me, IoT, though, what's interesting, though, right now is the shakeout between protocol specifications. So the Internet, the early age, you think, okay, Ethernet, okay, everybody uses Ethernet today. It wasn't always necessarily going to be that way. It could have been something else. In IoT, we have 802.11, right, standard Wi-Fi. There are lots of people who like to talk to me about Zigbee. There are other people who talk about Z-Wave, which apparently isn't quite Zigbee, but something related. Google is now pushing its technology. What do they call it? Thread. There are half a dozen other IoT-related foundations that have their various protocols, and it'll be very interesting to see what shakes. And then there's Bluetooth LTE. So you have 4, maybe 5 different protocols. Some encapsulate over Ethernet, some don't. It'll be very interesting to see because for the first time in at least 10 years, we've got multiple protocols where people are transferring stuff, and not everything is IP-based, which is very interesting. So I think there's a little bit of an interim step here. Ultimately, what I think everything will go back to Ethernet because Mr. Metcalf was not wrong. You never, ever, ever bet against Ethernet because you will lose. But
Sean, each of those protocols has a job to do, and they're all a little bit different. Don't you think there's room for all of them?
You know what? If there's one thing that Ethernet has taught us, I think, is that people like simplicity. So if you've got, like I've got Z-Wave, I think, and I've got a thread because I've got Nest in my house. I don't have visibility into the thread or the Z-Wave. I'm not really quite sure what happens until they touch my router. So what are those two Nest? I got a couple Nest Protects. What are they saying to each other? I don't know. Yes, they all have their own responsibilities and role, but at one point, not all that long ago, you remember our printers. We would plug our printers in through a printer port. What happened to that? People used to say to me, yeah, the printer port has a role, right? LPT1. That's gone. You plug your printer over Ethernet today. You don't bother it any other way. It's
good point.
So for simplicity's sake, I think over time, what has happened though is Ethernet. Why a lot of guys, a lot of developers, men and women will tell me is Ethernet is chatty. IP protocol. It takes a lot of power, and a lot of these IoT devices are low power type devices, are not always on, etc. That's where Bluetooth, Thread, Zigbee kind of come in. But I think the next wave of 802.11, which is 802.11ad, we won't see that till 2017, maybe 2019 in the market. I think that will shift. So I think there's, like I said, an interim period where we'll see multiple things. I think within the next 5 years, everything will settle back down at some kind of 802.11 Ethernet base. Everything will be a lot easier because then it's standard tools that everybody's used to for managing your printer, your phone, your webcam. Everything's the same. Why would you want different tools? It's too hard.
Okay. You're actually predicting in the years ahead that the protocols will streamline into one coherent protocol?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Only because I'm a student of history, and that's what's happened before. Why won't it happen again?
Hey, write that story, Sean. I want to see that.
I want to see the comments section for that story.
Yeah.
Comments are another thing. Comments are wonderful, and I encourage everyone on this hangout to comment on the related stories here. And please, positive comments. We love positive comments.
That'll do it, Sean.
One thing about the future I think is interesting. Looking at the report, the wearables and IoT getting a lot of buzz, but still, in the early innings, as you say, Chris. But I think what's going to happen is it means the technology is going to be ever more omnipresent in our lives, more than ever before. Yeah. And I think it's going to partially get even more blur the line between enterprise tech and retail tech. I mean, where is the information coming from? Where is it going? It's a continuation of the consumerization of IT.
Absolutely.
And I also think it's going to push big data because if we're already drowning in data now, what happens if suddenly our smart devices are creating even more data? So that says to me that big data is going to get even far larger in the years, exponentially larger in the years ahead.
Yeah, that's where managed service providers are going to be coming in. They're going to be coming in. That is already a huge growth area right now. and taking care of all of this stuff for businesses. And more of it's going to, more and more of these functions of the storage and the accessibility and the security and the networking are going to be, you asked for the future. This is what I'm seeing, more and more into bigger and bigger data centers. Apple's going to build a new data center right next door to Facebook's two data centers in Prineville, Oregon.
Wow.
Because they have prevailing wind from the south, and they channel the wind into the data center and then through the servers and then out the other end. Facebook figured that out. Apple's going to do that next. We're going to be seeing more and more of those kind of things. And those functions that we're talking about here are all going to be concentrated in these big, huge data centers. And that kind of worries me to an extent. A lot of power, a lot of functionality, centrally located in one place. I don't know about that, but that's where it's going.
You know, I'm thinking if there are ever infrastructures that had redundant backup, it is those two infrastructures. I mean, they will probably be going long after the rest of us have gone down.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, you could be right.
You know, maybe we've said it all. I want to make sure we don't have any, closing thoughts. You know, Sean, some jewel of wisdom you want to make sure you impart?
Yeah, well, I don't know about jewel of wisdom. We'll call it a nugget of truth, maybe. As I'm looking at things, because I would like to think of myself as a network guy first, is one of the things that participants on both sides noted as I'm looking at data in front of me was they're not necessarily going to continue to, they're not looking at the network as a source of investment. All these things that we're talking about, whether it's wearables at one end, big data, et cetera, at some point everything boils down to the network. So I would encourage both IT and business professionals not to neglect their networks. There are things that can be done, whether it's faster bandwidth, continuing to improve the quality of your switches, continuous reinvestment. Just because the study bothered me a little bit that way. People buy new phones every 2 years, but how often do you buy a network switch? Not that you should buy a network switch every 2 years, but I would love to see continued investment into the network, and there's real opportunities there too. Study didn't talk too much about that, but one of the big things that's changed for me anyway, and a lot of the people I talked to over the last year, is the amount of wired to wireless. Everybody still has a little bit of wired, but I see a lot that's not just mobility, but we're talking wireless for everything. There's an increasing amount of wireless for everything.
Right.
With notebook, wearable phone, this, that. Even offices. I see offices where they don't even bother to wire stuff anymore. They just do everything, deploy a couple 802.11 AC access points, and that's it. So it's an interesting shift, and I would just encourage people to heap praise on their network administrators. They may not be doing virtualization and other work, but the network is the backbone of all IT.
Okay.
Kachina, any closing thought? I think we may have said it, but I want to make sure we didn't leave anything out there.
I think we probably came pretty close. I guess I just think that it's going to be so interesting to watch a more convergence of things like the smart technologies and what we call artificial intelligence and robotics and things like that, where the enterprise is going to lead. The enterprise is going to lead on security solutions. The enterprise is going to lead on higher quality materials than what might be used in some of these early consumer-oriented solutions. So I really see a little bit more emphasis on enterprise and business solutions being created now than measuring how many steps you take. I mean, that's fun for all of us to do, but we're really on the verge of some life-changing and workplace-changing ideas.
Clearly. Mr. Primesberger, one last thought from you to bring us up.
I'll leave you with an image. Okay?
Yes. Okay.
Okay. Now, we talked about the convergence. We've been talking about the convergence of all these things happening now. The smart technology, the devices, the amount of data we've got to deal with, all the things that we write about and talk about all day long and we use all day long. Think about all the convergence of all those things. Now, I would like to take you back 109 years to San Francisco in 1906. When you're finished here, go to YouTube and type in 1906 San Francisco streetcar.
Okay.
You will get a video. It's about an 11-minute video. It's brilliant. And the person just locked it onto a streetcar, and it's going down Market Street toward the Ferry Building, right downtown. And you'll see this is the technology of 1906. Horses. There's a car. There's a people running. There's a train. There's a streetcar, and there's no organization. There are no street lights.
Oh, it's all free form, and not
it's free form.
Yeah.
Take a look at that. That is what we have today in IT.
I think you're right about that. I've often had that same thought. Like, there is no quote unquote referee. There is no like authority that's sort of regulating the whole thing. It's all exploding outward, and it's hard to say what exactly is going to happen, but also how exactly the component parts are going to interface with each other, and what the result of that is going to be. That remains a huge question.
And the standards are never going to catch up. I think IT is always going to be ahead of the standards, way ahead. And if you go back 109 years, that was the technology of transportation and of the city back then. And it's total chaos, and people almost get hit. You know, it's really comical. But I would say just go to YouTube, 1906 earthquake, no, 1906 San Francisco streetcar, and see it, and apply that to today, and you'll see.
And yet we somehow survived. I guess that's the one ray of sunlight that I'll take away from that. We did somehow survive.
I completely agree with Chris, and I think that's an interesting analogy. I had a professor at university many years ago who had this, who believed very strongly in chaos theory, and his theory was that chaos was the natural order of the universe, and that it was the human directive to create order of that chaos. So, you know, the universe, in this case IT, by its nature is chaotic, and then as humans we're just trying to create order out of it, and that's just a process that remakes itself time and again.
Yep.
And on that, I thank the three of you very much. A lot of good stuff, and the research report, I recommend people download that. It's a lot of good facts and statistics. Very interesting, actually. So thank you very much, and we can all tweet it and promote it.
See you, James.
All right, bye-bye.
Thanks, James. Bye.
Bye-bye.